You're standing in the grand hall of a Byzantine palace in 1453, mere days before Constantinople falls to the Ottoman armies. The marble floors beneath your bare feet are cold enough to make you shiver, but that's not why your body trembles. You stand in a plain linen tunic with a ceremonial collar linked by a cord, overseen by Constantine Palaiologos, a young noble. He publicly presents you as an attendant for his guests. You are a young attendant from a Genoese merchant family. Now you are legally enslaved under a noble's household. Their eyes pass over you with the detachment reserved for valuable objects. One woman reaches out to touch your hair, commenting on its unusual color. Her fingers feel like spiders crawling across your scalp. He tugs the cord and you stumble. You comply to avoid isolation in a punishment cell. He hands you a grape to show you follow instructions in silence. The fruit tastes unpleasant in your mouth, but you chew and swallow because the alternative is another night in the stone box where they keep you when you misbehave. Your story begins 3 months earlier in the Genoese quarter of Constantinople. Your father runs a modest trading business, importing silk from the east and selling it to wealthy Byzantines who still cling to their fading grandeur. You help in the warehouse, learning to judge fabric quality by touch, dreaming of the day you'll captain your own merchant vessel. The city around you is dying. Everyone knows it, but commerce continues because what else is there to do while waiting for the world to end? The Ottoman armies are closing in, but inside the city walls, the Byzantine nobility parties like tomorrow will never come. They need distractions from the impending doom, exotic entertainments to make them forget that their 1,000-year empire is gasping its last breaths. Agents prowl the quarters, recruiting and abducting youths for aristocratic households. You don't see them coming. One moment you're walking home from the warehouse as sunset paints the Hagia Sophia golden. The next, you're being pulled into an alley by men. The cloth they place over your face makes the world go soft and dark. You are processed for sale. Confined, cleaned, inspected under lamplight. Others have already learned that tears change nothing. The auction takes place in a private house near the palace district. You are presented for inspection under lamplight. They make you turn slowly on a platform, while Byzantine nobles examine you like property. Someone comments on your unusual features, the legacy of Genoese blood mixed with something northern from your mother's side. Your light eyes, they say, are particularly striking, like a cat's. Constantine outbids 3 other buyers, a reputation for acquiring people with distinctive appearances. Among them, a girl with albinism from Cairo and twin boys from Rus. Twin boys from Rus who look so identical that guests can't tell them apart. And now you, with your merchants. Son bearing and your unusual coloring. He doesn't assign you to labor, he expects ceremonial presence. The first night in his palace you try to maintain some dignity. You're from a good family. You can read and write in 3 languages. You know mathematics and navigation. Surely there's been some mistake. Surely someone will come looking for you. Constantine finds your protests amusing. Disciplined harshly, though he avoids visible marks. Your family, he tells you while you cry against the marble floor, thinks you're dead. A body found in your clothes led to a false report of your death. Your parents have already mourned you. The training begins immediately. You must learn to move differently, speak differently, exist differently. Your name is forbidden. Constantine calls you Chrysos, meaning golden, after your hair. You must respond instantly to this new name or face punishment. You're taught to kneel in specific ways, to keep your eyes downcast unless commanded otherwise, to remain silent unless given permission to speak. Every natural instinct must be suppressed and replaced with choreographed submission. The physical transformation is deliberate and humiliating. Grooming is tightly controlled to fit an idealized presentation. Your diet is strictly controlled to maintain a specific physique, lean but not gaunt, soft but not fat. You are bathed and groomed regularly to maintain a polished appearance. Your hair is grown long and styled in elaborate fashions that take hours to arrange. When Constantine wants to display you, You wear ceremonial garments of fine silk to signal status. Most of the time, you are kept in plain livery and a collar to signal ownership. Constantine's obsession with you goes beyond simple ownership. He's fascinated by your previous life, making you tell him stories about the merchant quarter, about ships and trade routes, about the world beyond the palace walls. But these conversations are performances, not genuine interest. He likes the contrast between what you were and what you've become. Sometimes he dresses you in the clothes of a merchant's son, then makes you act out elaborate charades where you're captured by pirates or barbarians, always ending with you pleading for release. The game excites him in ways that make your skin crawl. The other slaves in the household watch you with a mixture of pity and resentment. Some have been here for years and have found ways to carve out tiny spaces of autonomy within their captivity. They teach you survival tricks in whispered conversations during the few moments you're unsupervised. How to go somewhere else in your mind when Constantine's attention becomes unbearable. How to hide food for the times when he forgets to feed you because he's distracted by some new acquisition. How to tend to minor injuries discreetly. The albino girl, whose name you learn is Bianca, though that's not her real name either, becomes something like a friend. She's been here 2 years, taken from her family in Cairo. She tells you about the others who came before you, the ones who didn't survive Constantine's attention. Some did not survive the abuse. Others were replaced without a word. They're replaced as easily as broken pottery, she says. There's always another exotic child for sale in Constantinople's shadow markets. Constantine's games grow more elaborate as the Ottoman threat intensifies. It's as if the approaching doom makes him desperate to extract every possible sensation from his possessions while he still can. Performances cross personal boundaries and dignity. Sometimes it's merely dancing or singing. Other times, things happen that you'll never be able to scrub from your memory no matter how many years pass. One night, he decides you should learn to appreciate your good fortune. He takes you to the slave markets where they keep the laborers destined for mines and galleys. You see people chained in conditions that make your golden collar seem like a blessing. Bodies worn by labor with untreated injuries. Constantine makes you walk among them in ceremonial livery while they stare with neither envy nor pity, only the recognition of another soul caught in the machinery of ownership. "This is what awaits you," Constantine whispers, "if you ever displease me enough to sell you." The Ottoman cannons can be heard in the distance now, a constant thunder that makes the palace walls tremble. The city is in chaos. Citizens flee or huddle in churches praying for deliverance that won't come. But in Constantine's palace, the parties continue with a desperate fervor. The wine flows more freely. The games become more intense. It's like watching people dance on the edge of a cliff, pretending they don't see the drop. You learn that Constantine's uncle, the emperor, has refused multiple offers to surrender. He'd rather die with the city than live in exile. The noble families are divided between those planning escape and those determined to fight to the end. Constantine seems undecided, one day packing treasures for flight, the next declaring he'll stand with his uncle until the walls fall. His uncertainty makes him volatile, and you bear the brunt of his changing moods. 3 days before the final attack, Constantine hosts what everyone knows will be his last great feast. The entire collection is displayed, all his human treasures arranged around the dining hall like living statues. You stand perfectly still for hours, muscles screaming, while guests eat and drink and discuss the end of the world with shocking casualness. Someone mentions that the Ottomans are offering safe passage to anyone who surrenders before the walls are breached. Another argues that death is preferable to life under the Turks. No one mentions what will happen to slaves like you when the city falls. That night, Constantine gets drunker than you've ever seen him. He rambles about beauty and permanence, about how empires rise and fall but art endures. He declares he won't let his collection be taken, hinting at a fatal plan for everyone. He hints at using a draft to make people sleep. He says he would not let you face any fate alone. Together forever, master and possession, preserved in death like figures on a Grecian urn. Bianca finds you later, collapsed in your cell, shaking with a terror that has no words. She holds you while you sob, this girl who's endured 2 years of hell and somehow maintained enough humanity to offer comfort. She tells you about a kitchen worker who knows of strong sedatives used in households, about the guard who can be bribed to look the other way, about the Genoese ships still taking refugees if you can reach the harbor. There's a chance, she says. Slim, desperate, probably futile, but still a chance. The next morning, Constantine seems to have forgotten his drunken declarations. He's focused on deciding which treasures to pack, treating the approaching catastrophe like a temporary inconvenience. You help him sort through jewels and artwork, your hands steady despite the plan taking shape in your mind. Every normal moment feels like a performance now. You're acutely aware that your life depends on him not suspecting anything has changed. The Ottoman bombardment intensifies. Huge stones crash against the ancient walls, each impact shaking dust from the palace ceilings. Constantine grows increasingly erratic, one moment making elaborate plans for escape, the next insisting everyone must die gloriously with the city. He keeps you close constantly now, the chain never leaving his hand. At night, he makes you sleep on the floor beside his bed under watch. It's as if he's saving you for some final act he hasn't quite decided on. On what you'll later learn is May 28, 1453, the last full day of Byzantine Constantinople, Constantine makes his decision. Tomorrow, when the Turks breach the walls, he'll host one final gathering. All his beautiful things will be displayed one last time. Destroy what he owns rather than see it seized. He tells you this with tears in his eyes, as if he expects you to be grateful for the honor of dying as his possession. That night, as Constantine sleeps off another wine-soaked evening, you put Bianca's plan into action. The draft makes you convincingly ill, enough that even Constantine's physician believes you are dying. He orders isolation to prevent any spread. Constantine rages and weeps, but he won't risk catching whatever's killing you. You're moved to a storage room in the lower palace, away from his precious body. Bianca comes quietly before dawn, dressed in a servant's rough clothes with her distinctive skin hidden under dirt and soot. The guard has been dealt with. The path to the harbor is chaos but passable. She helps you stand on legs weak from the draft, wraps you in a cloak that covers you fully. For the first time in 3 months, you step outside without a chain. The city is dying around you. Fires spread. Panic grips the streets. Ottoman soldiers are already inside the walls, though the final attack hasn't officially begun. You move through this chaos like ghosts, 2 figures among thousands fleeing toward the harbor. No one looks twice at another pair of desperate refugees. Your golden collar is hidden under the cloak, but you still feel its weight with every step. At the harbor, Genoese merchants are loading their ships with whoever can pay or plead their way aboard. You have neither money nor proof of your identity, but Bianca has one last card to play. She knows things about Constantine's household, secrets that certain merchants would pay to keep hidden. A few whispered threats, a promise of silence in exchange for passage, and suddenly you're being hustled aboard a galley preparing to sail. You never learn what happens to Constantine, whether he died fighting, fled the city, or carried out a fatal plan with those who couldn't escape. Years later, you'll hear stories about the fall of Constantinople, but they never mention a prince and his collection of enslaved attendants. History remembers the emperors and generals, not the forgotten victims who suffered in palace shadows. Bianca disappears in Venice, melting into the city's crowds before you can properly thank her or even learn her real name. You eventually make your way home to Genoa, where you discover your parents survived the family's financial ruin following your supposed death. They've aged a decade in 3 months. When you appear at their door, your mother collapses. Your father weeps like you've never seen. They want to know what happened, where you've been, why everyone said you were dead. You never tell them. Not really. You invent a story about being kidnapped by pirates, held for ransom that never came, escaping during the chaos of the siege. They believe it because the alternative is unthinkable. No one wants to hear about Byzantine princes who kept people as possessions. No one wants to know what happened in those palace rooms while the empire crumbled. The truth would destroy them as surely as it nearly destroyed you. The golden collar left lasting marks on your neck, faint scars that never quite fade. You wear high collars for the rest of your life, even in summer heat. You never marry, though your parents try to arrange matches once the family fortunes recover. The thought of anyone touching you, even in love, makes you uncomfortable. You dedicate yourself to the business, becoming a successful merchant who never travels to any port where you might encounter someone who knew Constantine's household. Sometimes you dream about the others, the twin boys from Russia, a boy from India who disappeared from the household, a girl from the Caucasus who did not survive. You wonder how many forgotten children passed through Constantine's collection, how many names were erased and replaced with pet names in dead languages. You wonder if any others escaped, or if you and Bianca were the only ones who lived to remember. In your old age, you write an account of your experience, but you burn it before anyone can read it. Who would believe such horrors happened in the last days of the Byzantine Empire? Who would want to know that while Constantinople fell to Ottoman cannons, people were harmed behind palace doors for the amusement of the powerful? History prefers its tragedies grand and its victims nameless. Your story doesn't fit the narrative of civilizational collapse that scholars want to tell. You die in your own bed at 73, surrounded by nephews and nieces who know you as the eccentric uncle who never married, who sometimes stares at nothing with haunted eyes, who flinches when anyone moves too quickly. They find the collar, after your death, hidden in a locked box beneath floorboards. It's solid gold, worth a fortune, inscribed with Constantine's name and a phrase in Greek. Beauty is eternal. They sell it to a collector who thinks it's a fascinating artifact from the fall of Byzantium. He displays it in a glass case, never knowing it once circled the neck of a captive whose name was erased, who survived through the pure luck of an empire's collapse. The collector writes a little card for the display. Byzantine collar, circa 1453. Likely belonged to a noble's prized hunting dog or falcon. Because even centuries later, no one wants to believe the truth about what humans do to other humans when they have absolute power and think the world is ending. Few want to know about princes who collected people as if they were art objects, believing ownership could defy time. But empires always fall, cities always burn, and sometimes, just sometimes, the pets escape their collars and live to grow old in freedom, carrying memories that history refuses to record. Empires fall. Names vanish. Remember the people.